Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Hope you all are doing well. Let's take a look and see what's going on with Bitcoin for the day. So, taking a look at Sunday's candle, well, actually, this is Monday's candle, but Sunday's candle closed very bullishly, obviously. We were able to close above that 65,186, which is perfect. Monday's candle is showing bearishly, just like what we want to see if we were going to have a bullish week. So this is definitely a bullish sign for me. I am getting excited about this. We did kind of tap into this liquidity pool somewhat. I believe we kind of tapped into a double top in a ways. Let me go into, yeah, so if you take a look at the 12 hour, it kind of shows it a little bit more, but here's your double top around 65,740. Took a little bit of that liquidity. I was expecting for it to, if it wanted to, basically dive in a little bit more to the upside, but it might be saving that. But it did, tap in a little bit to this double top, and then it just fell through. So definitely a sign of reversal. Like I said, guys, I'm always targeting double tops and double bottoms, right? So this does make a lot of sense to me that we did that, and then we kind of fell through. Taking a look at the 8 hour. So the 8 hour and the 10 hour right now are the most interesting to me. Obviously, on your meso time frames, your 4 hour, your 6 hour, you've been keeping that 200 MA. And as long as you're able to keep that, we don't lose them. Your 8 hour and your 10 hour are starting to bundle up when it comes to the MAs. So what that means exactly is if we can actually bundle these, at least, the 50, the 21, and the 200, if we can actually get these tight, and we get that golden cross where the 21 crosses over the 200, just like how there was kind of a fake out for the 4 hour and the 6 hour, there is a potential that we get a massive spike up for the 8 hour and the 10 hour if we can get that golden cross. 10 hour kind of shows the exact same moving averages, just very slight differences, but this is showing and gearing up to be a very bullish sign, getting closer to the macro timeframes, right? Not quite the macro, because the macro you're considering like the daily and higher, but it is, between the meso and the macro, basically. We're getting up there to where this is starting to get exciting. Now, one thing I will say, guys, is if we do get this golden cross on the 8 hour and the 10 hour, your next target's going to be the 12 hour 200, and that's all the way up about 69,000, 599. I personally am going to be probably targeting the middle of this order block right here, so right around 69,138. But it does kind of lead to the fact that we could possibly start getting into the 70 or near the 70,000 range again if we were to, get those golden crosses on these bigger time frames. So the 8 hour and the 10 hour are what I'm watching for right now. And I will be watching them for the remainder of the week, see what they're going to do. And like I said, dumping at the beginning of Monday is definitely a bullish sign for the remainder of the week, and it does make me quite excited for a move up. Now, taking a look at the 6 hour, like I said, you definitely want us to keep, 63 to 62 on the 6 hour, and you want us to keep 63,000 on the 4 hour. So basically, as long as we can mainly bounce from this green line right here, I would say that is going to be your bullish case scenario, and we're probably going to get a nice bullish move up. This could look all at once to like a head and shoulders, but if we can keep the 4 hour and the 6 hour 200 MA, get those moving averages tight on the 8 hour and the 10 hour, you're going to get that move up no matter what. Okay. So that being said, guys, let's go ahead and drop into the 1 hour. And one thing I need to do also, I will say, is I need to move my Monday midnight line. We'll be doing that as we drop down into the smaller time frames. So your 1 hour, you did close below the 200 MA, possibly going to get that death cross. 2 hour, you've already tapped the 200 to the downside. So there's a potential that that's all that the drawdown that we needed. Again, like I said, we can get into the 63. I think I was targeting around 63.6. We'll line that up with liquidity, see kind of where that coincides. I wonder if I were to pull a fib from right here, and I think this aligns with my green line here. So this is 63,714, but if I go down, yeah, 63,451, so maybe even further. Trying to see where that green line aligns, maybe right around here. Yeah, I must have pulled it from right here. But basically, 63,322 to me is going to be a huge support line that we're going to have to follow if we want to continue our move up, or we want to keep, I should say. And then obviously to the move for the move up, I am more so targeting first 67.5 and then 69K if we were to get those golden crosses. So definitely some stuff to think about there. Um, so yeah, 1 hour loss to 200. 30 minute obviously is, it looks like it's going to be bouncing off the 200 right now. Um, 15 minute barely lost to 200, nothing major there. We do have the moving averages tight though, so it does suggest that we could keep that move going down. Let's see, 10 minute, you lost it cleanly. You got that gold death cross coming. 5 minute, yeah, 5 minute, you had those tight moving averages. So let's do this, guys. Let me go ahead and go back to midnight, Monday midnight, and let's move our blue line here, which is our Monday midnight open. Let's align it with where that's at. So let's see where we closed here. Gonna have to zoom in a little bit. Looks like we closed right around here. So that's gonna be your Monday midnight open. Let's see, did that line? No, right there. So 65 252 and 50 cents is going to be your Monday midnight open. So basically what that means is this line is going to be crucial when it comes to whether we're in a bearish or bullish bias. So obviously we lost that line. We're going underneath it. We will about 90% chance that we come back up and we test this line. And depending on how price reacts towards it, if we are bullish, we're going to breach this, probably test it as support, and then continue our move upward. Now, if we're bearish, what's going to happen is it's going to test this line, won't be able to get back above it, and then we're just going to free fall basically from there. So Monday midnight open is extremely important when it comes to price action, like we saw last week. Same with, the weekly open is as well. There's two different opens basically for the week that I track. So your weekly open is about 65,373, and then your Monday midnight open is going to be 65,252. So both of those lines are going to be serving right now as resistance. If, like I said, we were able to get back above them bullishly, that is when you'll be looking more for longs, okay, if you're using it as support. All right, so that being said, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at liquidity, see kind of where that aligns. Let me go ahead and minus this, get out of here. All right, so let me bring these up here. All right, so taking a look at liquidity. All right. So it does show that, obviously we have bridges to the downside. We could definitely reach down here into 63.6. Let me go into the 4 hour. That might be a little bit better here. So one very interesting thing, guys, is that we actually have this whole bridge to the downside. Not the best sign, obviously, for, a bullish move up. But like I said, I don't just rely on liquidity. I also rely on time. So there is a potential if we were to, get down here, I would more so expect it because Monday is bearish for right now. It would have to be Monday, Tuesday that we get down into here. Um, it wouldn't make sense for us to get down into here come Wednesday, Thursday for right now. The only way that this would make sense is if somehow, some way, Monday flipped extremely bullishly before daily candle close. You got a bullish move up on Monday, you got a bullish move up on Tuesday, and then basically we start coming down here come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But right now, from a timing perspective, since we're dumping right now on Monday, it doesn't really make sense that we're going to visit this anytime soon. Now we could tap the top of this about 60. It's about 63.6. That does align with what I've been seeing in the charts, taking out that triple bottom right here. Um, but in order for us to get this full move down, we would have to have a bearish week, and for right now, I'm just not seeing that in the cards just yet. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but we would basically have to flip today being bullish. And then, like I said, we'd have to either make the high today or high tomorrow and then basically dump the rest of the week. Let's take a look at the 1 hour. So the 1 hour, definitely showing all of that liquidity to the downside. It is kind of tricky. It is making it seem like we're going to get to 63.6 at least, right? We did tap a little bit of this liquidity here on the 50x for the 1 hour. Let me increase the aggregation a little bit, just kind of see where we're at. I'm just curious. So yeah, I mean, if you have the 25x to 50 and the 100x checked off, we haven't really dove into this pool yet. It does show that we could maybe bounce off the top of this pool. We're gonna have to zoom into the 15 to see this better. But definitely showing more liquidity to the upside if you do aggregate this liquidity, even all the way up to 68,000, which again, I'm targeting around 67.5 area, so this does align quite well with my narrative. Let me go into the 15-minute next and kind of see where we're at. So taking a look at the 15 with aggregation on, it does look like, we're around that same area hitting 68K. If I were to get rid of the aggregation, just check off 50 or even 100, it does allude to the fact that we're going to go to the downside, 50x as well. But the aggregation is telling a different story. The aggregation is saying that we have a chance to bounce at any given moment. So just kind of keep that in mind, guys. I mean, this tool is not going to be perfect, and like I said, if we are going to have a bearish week, we're going to have to bounce today. Probably make our high either today or tomorrow, and then completely fall through. I mean, that is still very much so a possibility. Depending on if we are going to have a bearish close this week. So today's going to matter a lot when it comes to our bias for the week. I don't like to usually put a lot of weight on Mondays, but this is one of those days where we could definitely have a reversal. It just is going to depend on what price wants to do, and the another indicator that's going to help us a lot is going to be the simple map. We'll take a look at that in a bit. Um, your order book through open market is showing that you do have more orders to the upside. However, there are some smaller orders coming into the downside here, all the way down to about 63,450. It looks like, and then it would take you down to 63,150 potentially. But to the upside, you have it all the way up to about 66,520. Even getting further, you have some up to 68,000. So definitely alluding to the fact that we could get that strong bounce back up. Um, yeah, it does look like, we have quite a bit of more orders to the upside than to the downside for right now. Not that that really matters or that says anything, but um, like I said, guys, I would really be targeting 63.6, to the downside and then to the upside if we can really get that strong, solid move up. I'm targeting, 66K obviously, but then 67.5 is going to be my main target for this week, as well as 68K. So those are going to be kind of where I'm looking at, and obviously if we can even get the more of the follow through, 69, 69,500 in that area, which would be in the middle of that order block I showed you guys. So that's going to be your extremely bullish scenario, basically ignoring this liquidity, for right now. And if we, the only problem is if we do ignore this liquidity for now, we're not really at the time for a bottom, I would say. That usually happens closer to October. So there's a potential chance that we could have a rollover once we hit, some of that upper liquidity getting into the high 60s, right? Um, so, if this were closer in the fall time frame, I would say that there's a potential that this could be kind of we're bottoming out here. But I'm not quite convinced yet because we're in the summer. So, again, all based off of time, right? Let's take a final look at our simple map, see where that's at. So our simple map, taking a look here, you have some 100x liquidity to the upside, nothing major. To the downside, it looks like, you have a few liquidity points to keep in mind here. The first one getting over the hump around 64,350, and if you're able to fall through there, you'd be looking about 64,200. And then finally, if you're able to fall through there, what we've been targeting, 63,690 on this tool. And then to the upside, you don't really have any sort of resistance points until about 65,730. So that would be your first spot that you'd probably have some problems with. And then if you're able to kind of scale it on up, you're probably looking at about 65,970, about 66,000 before you kind of roll through this volume here. But those are some levels to maybe keep in mind, to the downside and then to the upside, at least on the smaller time frames, your 5, your 15, your hourly. Your larger time frames will probably show the same thing. These have been quite aligned lately, so yeah. For right now, you do have more liquidity, 25x, 10x, 5x, and even up here, your 100x, 50x to the downside. But it does show that you do have some more support points potentially around, like I said, 64,350 will be key, 64,2, and then all the way down to 63,690, around 63,7. And then getting up, if you were to fall through this volume gap to the upside, you'd probably have some sort of problem around 65,730 before you could even get higher, to about 65,940, like we said above, to which is about 66,000. And then if you're able to fall through that, you could really start gaining some traction. Maybe it's about 66.3 ish, and then falling through that, going from there. All right, guys, that being said, that is what I have for you for today. As usual, if you guys want to use trading difference tools, help you easily identify a bias and take a look and see where liquidity is at any given time, feel free to use my code Sean. You'll get 10% off your entire order, tradingdifferent.com/code/Sean to take advantage of that deal. All right, guys, that being said, that's what I have for you for right now. I will be back later on this evening. I hope you all have a wonderful day and take care.